If you told me a few months ago that Arsenal would have beat Lyon in the Champions League semi-final to make it to the final, I wouldn't have believed you. Honestly, I didn't even give the North London side much of a shot going into that second leg. Something I failed to really take into account, though, is that Lyon is coached by Jose Montemurro, so I really should have seen this coming, actually. Barcelona in the final obviously isn't much of a surprise. What is surprising is how dominant they were over Wolfsburg and Chelsea. Like, oh my god, ref, do something! Like, Chelsea achieved a domestic invincible season, meaning they have lost no games in England competitions and won the domestic treble. But you would not have guessed that by how they played against Barcelona. This is without a doubt a match between the two biggest fan bases in women's club football. So, what should you know before kickoff? This is Arsenal's first Champions League final since 2007. You heard me right. 18 years since they beat Wolfsburg in what was then called the UEFA Women's Cup. And get this, no English club has won the Women's Champions League since, as French and German giants pretty much ran the show throughout the 2010s. Meanwhile, Barcelona are the two-time defending champions. They're about to play in their 6th final in the last 7 years. They've won 3 of the 5 finals they've been in, including the last 2, so now they are aiming for a three-peat in this final. The only other club to achieve a three-peat in the Champions League? Lyon, who won it 5 times in a row. Arsenal and Barcelona have actually only met in the Champions League 4 times in their history and have split wins. 2 wins to Barcelona, 2 to Arsenal, and 0 draws. Even more evenly, both have scored 8 goals against each other in these games. Their first time playing against each other was in the 2012-13 season in the round of 32, where Arsenal killed Barcelona 7-0 on aggregate in 2 games. During this time, Arsenal was professionalized, while Barcelona was not. Barcelona professionalized their club pretty late. In the first game, Jen Beattie, Jordan Nobbs, and Kitty Chapman, all Women's Super League legends, scored. Beattie then followed the next fixture up with a hat-trick, and Kim Little got in on the scoring also. The two clubs wouldn't play each other again until almost a decade later, in the 2021-22 season in a group stage. Barcelona flipped the script on Arsenal here, absolutely dominating them on matchday 1 with a 4-1 scoreline, then shutting Arsenal out on matchday 5 4-0. The first fixture saw Mariona Caldentey score against her future club, joined by Alexia Putellas, Asisa Oshoala, and Lieke Martens. Frida Maanum was the only player to score for Arsenal. In the reverse fixture, Jennifer Hermoso grabbed a brace, accompanied by goals from Aitana Bonmatí and Fridolina Rolfo. So, Kim Little and Frida Maanum are the only 2 current Arsenal players on the roster who have scored against Barcelona in the Champions League. Aside from the players mentioned before for Barcelona, summer signing Ewa Pajor, also known as leading goal scorer of Europe, has scored against Arsenal during her time at Wolfsburg pretty recently in the 2023 semifinals. Now, onto the club's forms. They could not be more different. Arsenal seemed to have momentum after a comeback upset against Lyon. They had just had come back from a 2-0 loss against Real Madrid with a 3-0 win in the reverse fixture just the round before. While Arsenal are clearly not a better team than Chelsea, people started thinking that this might be a more competitive affair with Barcelona, given the fact that Arsenal had just beat a pretty dominant Lyon. Barcelona also isn't obviously as familiar with Arsenal as they are with Chelsea, so there could be more surprises in this matchup. Arsenal were doing pretty well in the Women's Super League also, dominating Liverpool 4-0, 4-0 over Palace, and a 5-1 over Leicester. However, 2 of these wins were obviously against teams fighting relegation. Just overall, ever since Renee Slegers stepped in after the sacking of Jonas Eidevall, Arsenal were having a pretty strong campaign alongside the Champions League. However, for some reason, Arsenal have fallen off a cliff since their upset over Lyon. They immediately followed up their historic performance by losing to Aston Villa 5-2. They allowed 5 goals to Aston Villa, which gifted Chelsea the league. Even worse, Jordan Nobbs opened the scoring. You know, maybe this was just a one-off. Players resting from the Champions League. Yeah, no, they followed that loss up with a 4-2 loss to Brighton and Hove Albion. Fortunately for Arsenal, though, they did turn around in their last league game of the season. Kind of. Yes, they beat Manchester United and scored 4 goals, but they also allowed 3 goals defensively, meaning that Arsenal has allowed 12 goals in just their last 3 games. Woof. Meanwhile, it seems like Barcelona can't stop scoring. Barcelona have just had an insane season so far. I mean, they've already won Liga F in the Supercopa de España Femenina. They were also in the final of La Copa de la Reina against Atletico Madrid in June. And just overall, all the players have been playing well. Like I said before, I think Ewa Pajor is their best player this season, but honestly, you can make a case for also like Aitana Bonmatí and Alexia Putellas, and even maybe Claudia Pina the past few weeks. They've only scored less than 2 goals in a game this season 4 times. Even further, they have scored in every single game this season except for one, the early Champions League group stage loss to Manchester City, which they bounced back from in the reverse fixture. Now, you could say Barcelona score a lot because of the competition of the Spanish league, but the Champions League results proves they can score against anybody. An insane 10-2 aggregate against Wolfsburg in the quarterfinals, followed up by an insane 8-2 on aggregate against Chelsea in the semis, a team that went invincible domestically. Whatever kinks Barcelona had at the start of the season, they have worked out. The defense has also been really solid recently thanks to Irene Paredes. Anya Batlle and Esme Brooks completely shut down Chelsea attack in Catalonia also. Now, it is fair to say that anything can happen, of course. But if Barcelona can get 4 past Chelsea's solid defensive line in a single game, I fear what's going to happen to Arsenal's defense that has been struggling since their win in Lyon. The good news for Arsenal is that their offense seems to be back on track after their win over Manchester United. Seeing Frida Maanum score is a very positive sign, but there's a 2-week difference between that game and the Champions League final, and it's hard to see that form continuing. The good thing for Arsenal about this break, though, is that we may see a full return of Daphne van Domselaar from injury. It's clear she's the club's number 1 keeper, and while Zinsberger is by far from Arsenal's biggest weakness on defense, she hasn't helped through this run of games. Arsenal is going to be very vulnerable to Barcelona's strong attack. Steph Catley has taken a step back this year, and Leah Williamson has been pretty inconsistent since returning from her ACL injury. While there are some games where she seems more like her old self, there are a lot of games, especially against top teams, where poor positioning and vision has led to opposition goals. While Emma Fox has certainly been a bright spot this season for Arsenal, she has struggled in the last 2 league games, especially in the 4-2 loss to Brighton on May 5th. While that was one of her worst games to the club, the other 3 in the back line played worse, especially Katie McCabe, whose season has been defined by ups and downs. The battle to watch in Barcelona versus Arsenal is Caroline Graham Hansen versus Katie McCabe, and given McCabe's form and frustrating streak of fouls, Hansen will most likely get the better of McCabe due to her speed and dribbling abilities. Hansen likes to bait defenders a lot with her dribbling, and that can get frustrating really fast. She goes slowly, then big burst when the defender bites. If I could bet on this game, I would bet that McCabe will commit a hard foul on Graham Hansen if Hansen gets past her one too many times. Against Chelsea, Barcelona just had better personnel, and that's very clear as I made out my breakdown of that semifinal. Barcelona have top players at their position throughout their starting 11. Arsenal do not have higher quality players than Chelsea. For example, Salma Parejo might be coming off the bench on the wing, and she's better than any of Arsenal's wings. By far, Arsenal's best player of the season has been Mariona Caldentey, and they are going to need a big game out of her in order to have a chance. The issue is that Barcelona only need a big game out of one of the following players: Aitana Bonmatí, Alexia Putellas, Claudia Pina, and Caroline Graham Hansen. Even further, if these players have a bad game, there are so many others they could rely on. Bluntly, I don't think anyone Arsenal has defensively will be able to stop Claudia Pina alone. Her form has been unreal since her brace off the bench against Chelsea. She scored again in the second fixture, played well in Barcelona's 2-0 win over Levante, got a hat-trick and assist in Barcelona's recent game against Real Betis, and is coming off a brace performance. So that brings us to our likely lineups. I doubt Arsenal will shake up their back line, mostly because they don't really even use the depth they have there. Wubben Moy only saw 1 minute of playing time in Arsenal's last 2 games as a whole. It is, of course, usually Maanum and Little in the midfield alongside Caldentey on the left flank. Putting Caldentey in the midfield position is not something I saw coming this season, I'll be honest. It has worked at times, she has been Arsenal's best player, but in my opinion, it can also take her out of some games. Russo will be up top, no doubt. The questions are which 2 wingers start out of Ford, Kelly, and Mead. Off the bench, we'll probably see Blackstenius and Leo Walti getting action. It's weird because Arsenal do have depth and players they could use, but ever since Slegers took over, they have been very conservative with substitutions. Younger players like Cooney Cross and Rosa Kafaji just have not played. Barcelona is a little harder to predict. It's essentially locked that we will see Caracol in goal with Lyon and Paredes in the center of the defense. Anya Battier will most likely be on the right, but there's definitely a question of whether Romeo will opt for Wolfo or Brooks at left back. I would assume Rolfo, though, due to experience. In the midfield, I highly doubt they stray from the Bonmatí, Putellas, Grujario trio. There are really only two other options in the midfield, the two youngsters Alba Canho and Sydney Schurtenleib, who is more of an attacker. Given Pajor's track record against Arsenal, I doubt Barcelona will mess with an alternative option at striker. Barring injury, of course, Graham Hansen will be on the right wing. The left wing is really where it gets interesting. Again, Claudia Pina is on fire, so I would give the nod to her, but again, Salma Pereiro has been more of a prominent fixture this season at the left wing. And see, this is what really separates Arsenal and Barcelona. Barcelona has so many options off the bench. They could look to Pereiro, Ingrid Engen, Brooks, Schurtenleib, even Jana Fernandes. Wow, if only Arsenal played their young players more like Barcelona, they might not be in this position. Barcelona are, unsurprisingly, the top goal-scoring club in Spain, and Arsenal are the top goal scorers in the Women's Super League. However, Arsenal's defensive record this season is abysmal compared to the other top two clubs in England. They have conceded twice as many goals as league winners Chelsea, again, a club that lost 8-2 on aggregate to Barcelona. I mean, Barcelona are absolutely the favorites for this match. If Van Domselaar is in goal for Arsenal, it might soften the blow a little, though. From a game plan perspective, Barcelona are probably not going to have to change their regular one that much for Arsenal, but there is definitely an offensive threat, more than an injured Chelsea. Because of this, we might see them play Patrick Guijarro a little deeper in the defense for more depth. Ingrid Engen is also a great defender, so it's possible they will have a defensive scheme ready if they want to bring her on at some point. As for Arsenal, their only way to have a chance in this matchup is to do what they did in the second leg against Lyon. Capitalize on mistakes. Arsenal's finishing was also pretty good with an absolute class goal from Caldentey. However, Barcelona are better coached than Lyon. They do have a worse goalkeeper. Caracol is very good, but she's not Endler. And it's possible that they do make one or two costly mistakes in the back line. But say Arsenal capitalize on two Barcelona mistakes and score 2 goals, right? The issue is that Barcelona will probably just score more goals. This season, Williamson has had an issue of keeping her mark on corners, and I can see her easily losing Pajor in that area, despite Pajor being shorter than her. If Arsenal didn't have the horrible 3-game stretch, I would give them way more of a chance actually, especially since Slegers has proven she has a decent tactical mind. But unless Arsenal's defense improves their spatial awareness and stops clumping together, Barcelona is going to run riot. There have been too many times recently where Arsenal is just ball watching on defense. This is especially bad for Arsenal because Barcelona's game is literally getting defenders out of position with their movements and rotations off ball. Aside from capitalizing mistakes, for Arsenal to really have a chance, they have to go into more defensive look. Maybe even start Walty over Maanum and have her play deep. While Little is a legend and Maanum and Walty are good players, I don't think they're suited to adapt to the midfield of Bonmatí, Putellas, and Guijarro, probably the best midfield in football history. Like, it's challenging the Henri, Kumagai, and Jennifer Majoron trio from Lyon's golden years. McCabe is so crucial in Arsenal's attack, but it gets ugly when she's frustrated, and she'll probably get frustrated pretty quickly. And when that happens, Arsenal will probably get flustered and Barcelona will strike. Overall, this is huge for Arsenal to get back into the Champions League final after 18 years, especially with an in-season manager change. You can go into the stats all you want, it will just show you that Barcelona are on another level. When Barcelona are feeling comfortable though, that is when they can get cut down. We saw this assuredness when they did lose to Real Madrid earlier this season, but they did not flinch at Chelsea. While some of Arsenal's players have been to the Champions League final, Arsenal as a whole have not been to a Champions League final in the modern era, and we saw how that went down last time an English club played Barcelona for the first time in a Champions League final. Nerves are everything, and Barcelona has been in this position before. Thank you so much for watching the video. I'm always looking for feedback, so please let me know in the comments, and also comment what you're looking for in the final.